The change. Half the world's population will experience it, and it is arguably the most important biological shift a woman will go through, the menopause. Do you know what menopause is? Are you confident in the definition you can provide? The symptoms, the treatments? Do you know how menopause is diagnosed? Very few people here will be able to answer these questions correctly, and before embarking upon my investigation into menopause, I would not have been able to answer any of these questions either. Our collective lack of knowledge is what makes it crucial to talk about menopause and change the stigma that menopause is shameful and cannot be discussed. This is how we change the change. I would like everyone to consider a time that menopause was brought up in conversation. Was the conversation supported? Was menopause used as a joke? Perhaps you are unable to recall when you were involved in a discussion about menopause. Even that needs to be changed, because 1.1 billion women will experience menopause in their lifetime. In relation to our country, 1 in 7 women are currently experiencing menopause. Out of all the women that experience menopause, 75% will be seriously impacted. Today I seek to address our collective lack of knowledge about menopause, and by the end of this talk, hope you will be encouraged to change your attitude towards the change. The name menopause comes from the Greek words men, meaning month, and pausus, meaning pause. Menopause is diagnosed after 12 months of amenorrhea, which is the absence of menstruation, resulting from the permanent stopping of ovarian follicular function and a decline in blood estrogen levels. Estrogen is one of the main female sex hormones responsible for the regulation and development of the female reproductive system. In other words, menopause is the most important biological change a woman will go through. They transition from being capable of carrying a baby to no longer having the capacity to do this. The mean age for menopause is 51 years, but most women experience menopause between the ages of 45 and 55. Menopause can happen naturally or for reasons such as an oophorectomy, which is the removal of an ovary or ovaries, a hysterectomy, which is the removal of the uterus, cancer treatments like chemotherapy, or genetic reason. You may have heard the term perimenopause being discussed alongside menopause. Perimenopause refers to the period of change from when symptoms of menopause are first observed to 1 year after the final period, when menopause is then diagnosed. Diagnosis of menopause is extremely hard because often many symptoms that could be seen as normal need to be present. One woman said, "I'm partway into a journey I didn't know I'd begun. It started around 2015 and happened so slowly, it took me around a year to work out what was happening. I started forgetting little things. At first, why am I in the kitchen? Oh yes, I put the kettle on an hour ago. Once I made a cake and popped it in the oven. 3 hours later, I thought, what's that humming noise in the kitchen? It was the oven alarm. Oh yes, the cake. Then the exhaustion started to hit. I'd fall asleep during the day on the sofa. My driving suffered too. I've always been good at parking, but even that became a problem. If that wasn't enough, my mood swings started to become like a pendulum, going back and forth gently and then bam. It would get stuck on anger for 3 to 4 days a month. I had genuine concerns I was losing my mind. But I kept trying to convince myself I was just doing too much. It was only when my periods became shorter but heavier in 2017 that I talked to a friend about it. She mentioned perimenopause, which I had never even heard of, and that's when I went to see a GP to find out more. This woman went through 2 years of these symptoms without speaking to family, friends, or even a doctor. Hundreds of thousands of women have similar experiences. This story demonstrates why it is crucial we change how menopause is spoken about and perceived in society. So what exactly happens to the female body during menopause? Symptoms of menopause first begin when there's a decrease in the ovarian production of inhibin. Inhibin's function is to inhibit FSH, which triggers estrogen production. There are 2 types of inhibin, inhibin A and inhibin B. You can see on the diagram behind me that when inhibin B drops, FSH rises, which leads to the follicular phase of the menstrual cycle shortening and an accelerated process of follicle maturation. During menopause, this process occurs earlier, shown by the arrows on the diagram. because of the decrease in the production of inhibin B, which offsets the entire cycle and can result in other ovarian hormones altering their release. At this point, women do not consistently have low estrogen levels. Menopause is a very gradual process, and the hormone levels are continually fluctuating. The number of eggs is constantly decreasing due to apoptosis, which continues from fetal life to adult life, regardless of reproductive hormones. This loss of eggs, along with fluctuations in hormones, are the main determinant of menopause. Menopause is a process of change. As we have just discussed, this involves variation in hormone levels within the female reproductive system. However, the most impactful change for women is the physical effects menopause has on them. These are hugely unique for each person, and symptoms change depending on the hormone levels within the female body. Here are just some of the symptoms of menopause: anxiety, depression, brain fog, mood swings, panic, hot flushes, migraines, muscle pain, hair loss, tinnitus, irregular periods, difficulty concentrating, memory problems, irritability, poor sleep, fatigue, breast tenderness, UTIs, vaginal dryness, feeling dizzy, osteoporosis, low libido, gut problems, weight gain, heart palpitations, night sweats, shortness of breath, burning mouth syndrome, paranoia, bladder infection, stomach pain, bloating, low motivation, dry skin, sore gums, panic attacks, joint pain, dry eyes. As you can hear, there are a huge amount of symptoms of menopause which can alter and change a woman's life in very influential ways. Any one of these symptoms can have debilitating effects upon an individual, and a combination of these symptoms is even worse. Many women are left feeling like they are no longer themselves. They cannot understand what has happened to them or what is wrong with them. Women are most likely to commit suicide when they are between the ages of 45 to 59, which is when they will experience the symptoms of menopause, and this is why it is so imperative that our conversations surrounding menopause change. We must better support those who are experiencing this huge biological shift and allow them to discuss their feelings openly with others without being ashamed for it. One of the major contributors to menopause being seen as a taboo subject is the fact that for years we have avoided discussing women's health problems. Many of the women in the audience will recall being given a book explaining what a period was. The book had a section dedicated to what to say when you got your period. One of these that stuck with me was, instead of simply saying, "I have my period," we were advised to tell others that the painters and decorators have arrived, or the red troops were marching in. I understand that for many young girls, getting their period is a daunting experience, and some will feel far more comfortable having a code name for it. But regardless, this sets the precedent for young girls that periods cannot and must not be discussed. Many become scared to even mention the word. It becomes a shameful subject that lots of people feel uncomfortable talking about. We are advised to come up with an alternative name for something that is a universal experience for half the world's population every single month. The inability to discuss important biological processes that a woman experiences are seen later in life with menopause. Not discussing menopause compounds the problem, because we are then left with thousands of women who will suffer in silence without the support of friends, family, or even a doctor. Many women feel embarrassed to discuss their symptoms with a doctor, but when they do, there are treatments available. These treatments change a woman's daily life, as they now have to worry about dosages, keeping track of periods, and regular health checkups. The most common treatment that many people will have heard of is hormone replacement therapy, or HRT. HRT was invented in 1963, but rose to popularity in the 1990s. It is when estrogen is used to replace the body's own levels, and it can be given through the use of a patch. HRT does relieve symptoms of menopause, prevents osteoporosis, and maintains muscle strength. However, HRT artificially changes the hormones within a woman's body, which can result in further unwanted change. This can include the increased risk of developing breast or ovarian cancer, heart disease, blood clots, or strokes. Many women are left with the hard choice of suffering with the symptoms they already have, or taking HRT while knowing they are far more at risk from potentially fatal illnesses. What choice can be made? Live with the change, or cure the change but potentially develop unwanted change? There are other treatments for menopause. One of the most effective that many women find help ease their symptoms is lifestyle changes. This includes eating a healthy diet, regular physical exercise, hydration, and adequate sleep. Another woman said, "I began cycling more often, 3 times a week for 30 minutes each time, and I can't tell you how much that helps, and still does. I also took up yoga, so with bike riding, yoga, and meditation, I managed to navigate the very worst of the symptoms." It's important to note that lifestyle changes do not work for everyone, as each woman will experience menopause differently. Something I discovered during my research, which is hugely shocking, is just how many people are uneducated about menopause. We need to change the way that menopause is not taught to young people, because often they are the most unaware but will be living with their mothers who will be going through menopause or perimenopause. A UCL-led study found that more than 90% of women were never taught about menopause in school, and over 60% only start looking for information once their symptoms had begun. This demonstrates that many women are not adequately informed about menopause until they are experiencing it. The most surprising statistic I came across was from a survey by the National Institute of Health in 2021, who found that 41% of the UK's medical universities do not include mandatory menopause education. I found this especially shocking because regardless of which specialty doctors go into, half their patients will be women, and they will have no understanding of arguably the most important biological change they undergo. I hope that in the future this is rectified and that each of us here today, if given the opportunity to make tangible change surrounding menopause, will ensure that everyone, especially future doctors, receive adequate education about it. Menopause is a process all women will go through, and far more steps must be taken to ensure that everyone, regardless of gender, is informed about menopause. Through this education, the stigma associated with menopause will hopefully decrease. This talk is just one small step to hopefully educate and reduce the shame surrounding menopause. We must allow for change to occur through facilitating open, non-judgmental discussions about menopause. Don't let anyone suffer in silence, and let's change how we talk about the change.